Central Bank of Central Banks says the world is unable to fight next global crash by Mac Slavo. Now, this is from June 2015, 2 years ago. It's not exactly the most current article, but it's very insightful. This is from the SHTF plan website. If you can figure out what SHTF, something hitting the fan, means. According to the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS, the shadowy central bank of central banks, the world as it stands is incapable of combating another global financial crash, a crash that there is every reason to think is coming. That's because the economy remains in the hands of the Federal Reserve and other central banks. The financial wizards in this below video went so far as to say that we are all slaves to the central banks, and I'll include links for that. It wasn't exactly hyperbole. According to the BIS, central banks have already used up their ammunition by driving interest to below zero, freezing investment for the important stuff like production and infrastructure, instead fueling huge bubbles for wonder kids on Wall Street to play in. Now everything is basically teetering on the edge until the music stops. According to the BIS, Bank of International Settlements, it will soon be time to pay the piper, as persistent ultra-low rates are poised to unleash destruction upon the economy like King Kong set loose on Manhattan. The BIS report described the threat of a new bust in advanced economies as a main risk, with many reaching the top of the economic cycle. The economies worst hit by the last crisis are now suffering the costs of persistent ultra-low rates, the organization said, which could inflict serious damage on the financial system, sapping banks and weakening their balance sheets and their ability to lend. And worse, the advanced countries will be unable to fight back against the serious consequences. According to their 2015 annual report, the world will be unable to fight the next global financial crash as central banks have used up their ammunition trying to tackle the last crises. Central banks have backed themselves into a corner after repeatedly cutting interest rates to shore up their economies. Central banks may have contributed to the coming crisis by fueling costly financial booms and busts and delaying adjustment. In the past years, the Bank of International Settlements has painted a clear picture of the bleak financial landscape brought on by central bank policy since the 2008 crisis. It warned that in 2013, that fresh action from central banks to kickstart growth may do more harm than good by distorting financial markets and jeopardizing stability. Unfortunately, central banks cannot do more without compounding the risks that they have already created. In 2014, it found that central banks have failed to achieve a recovery and are incapable of doing so. Robust, self-sustaining growth still eludes the global economy. Central banks cannot solve the structural problems that are preventing a return to strong and sustainable growth. Most of all, central banks cannot enact the structural economic and financial reforms needed to return economies to the real growth paths authorities and their publics both want and expect. What central bank accommodation has done during the recovery is to borrow time. But the time needs to be used wisely as the balance between benefits and costs is deteriorating. Given the unique insider position of the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS, in the global financial power structure, these are foreboding words to be met with mature concern. This is a tacit admission that the powers that be know the next big crisis is around the corner, and they are ready to watch us drown in it, this time without reaching down to offer us up. All right, folks, I might add here that this came out in mid-2015, and that was about the same time that the Bank of International Settlements, which is the one in Switzerland that used four currencies as their drawing rights, specified drawing rights. Their specific reserve deposit monies, the SDRs, were in pound sterling, dollars, yen, and euros. And now they added the Chinese yuan. And when they were asked, the woman, I think her name is Lagarde, she was asked, she's the chairman of the Bank of International Settlements, and why did you add a fifth currency to the reserve basket for the drawing rights, the SDR? It's called SDR, specified drawing rights. She said, to hedge against the dollar. The dollar is the petrodollar, which has now been switched to the Chinese yuan. Countries like Venezuela will no longer sell their oil in dollars. They sell it in yuan prices with the Chinese yuan currency. Russia has declared a bill banning all dollars from trade in their ports in their country. China and Russia have pacts together. China is loaning $10 billion loans to Iran. There are a lot of things going on in the world that hinder the dollar's ability to maintain its value. And over time, depending on how fast it busts, the fall could be, I'm predicting 55 to 70% in value against the other specified drawing right currencies from the Bank of International Settlements based in Switzerland. That's my prognosis. I'm Alex Aquarius. Thank you for coming to Plain Mundane Show. Please hit like and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications when I put out some new videos. Give you some more info. Thanks for coming. I'm out.